Good morning, everybody. Everybody, it's pretty much morning because I'm in Eastern and we're only 10 a.m.
Yes.
So it's still morning here. Yeah.
Same thing. Same thing here.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I'm so really looking forward to this conversation because I get a lot of very specific and detailed questions about what do I do? We can all talk in theory about the challenges of caring for someone who has a neurocognitive disease or dementia, as we'll just call it throughout this, because it's just easier and people know that term. But people ask me very specific questions, like everyone's saying, I know it's hard, but what do I do when? And so today we're going to talk about just that. When your loved one says to you, but I need to go home, my parents are waiting for me for dinner.
Yep.
Or where am I? Or something like, I have to go pick up my kids from school. Meanwhile, this woman is 90 years old and you know for sure she doesn't have school-age children. So we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty today and talk about some real specific things. And if you have some questions, feel free to throw them in. So I want to introduce my guest, Rachael Wonderlin. I connected with her through social media platforms and started following her work. She has an amazing website called Dementia by Day. She's written several books, 2 books. She's written one called When Someone You Know is Living in a Dementia Care Community. That was 2016, right, Rachael?
Yes. Yep.
And Creative Engagement, which just was published last year. And she has some other services. You can find her online. And when this is done, I'll put the link to her website in the comments. So anyways, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things that we've talked about, this was a while back, but people look at you and see your age and say, what could you possibly know about dementia care? You're so young.
Sure.
So let's just get that out of the way, because I know people are going to look at you and say, how long have you been doing this? I mean, I know you have a master's degree in gerontology and you do your work, but tell me about your experience.
Yeah. Fortunately, I don't get it as much as I used to. I think because, when I started really public speaking and started my own business, I was only 27. So I've been doing this since 2016. And unfortunately for the last year, I haven't been able to do a lot of public speaking. I've been public speaking on online, doing webinars and things like that. So I have a master's in gerontology. I have 2 books with Johns Hopkins University Press. My 3rd one will be out probably in January. We'll see how everything falls together with that. It's so much work. It's so much work finishing a book and getting that out there. I've been a dementia care director, 3 different buildings, and my last building, 2016, I got laid off and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I don't want to work for somebody else who has control over my fate. I want to do my own thing. So I started working for myself. Dementia by Day had already been a blog for a couple of years. My book was already coming out, and I just focused all of my energy in Dementia by Day, the consulting company. So not just, a blog, but what I do mostly now is work with senior living companies to help them build better dementia care programs. I have a ton of free content. So a lot of my content is family specific, but it was, really what is my bread and butter, the way that I make money and pay my bills, and is for corporate clients who have dementia care programs or don't, and actually just need to build it from the ground up.
So in your experience, Rachael, what do you think we're doing wrong with dementia care? I mean, I'm sure you can list a billion things, but
Sure.
why don't we start with, a couple things that you really see that generally, obviously it's not going to be across the board everywhere, but in general, what are we doing wrong with dementia care in community living situations?
Well, you definitely have people coming into the industry who have no real experience in dementia care. They're coming in from real estate. They're coming in from different backgrounds that have no background in senior living at all. And they know it's a moneymaker. So they're like, I'm going to get into this world. I'm going to start making money. That's fine if they come in with the intention to hire people like me who can help get them to a place where they're ready to actually own and operate a dementia care community. But otherwise, it's tough. So I think for one, I think it's gotten a little bit better with how we talk about dementia care. I think families are starting to understand that it is more of an option than it was before. And not just shaming people into keeping their loved ones at home forever, which is not always an option. But also the way that we teach dementia care in communities. If we're, communities who are still relying on, like Teepa Snow DVDs from the early 2000s, like they're training their entire staff with like a DVD, that's really not enough training for like a year of them working with people living with dementia. It's just not enough time.
Okay, so one of the things that organizations are doing wrong is they're not actually, first of all, the owners and the operators, which those words are so interesting to me when we're talking about taking care of human bodies.
Yep.
Yet we're talking about owning a building and a program, which people are in there, and then operating is a term that we use for like operating machinery. So it's like it's a dehumanizing term, but that is what we say is owning and operating. So part of your work is about, or what you've seen is that those who are running and organizing these organizations don't have the proper staff training. One of the things that you said, and we'll go back to what else you see in communities in general, but you just said something about people shaming people into feeling like they need to keep somebody home. You just said that, Rachel, because I hear a lot of judgments from healthcare professionals, not all, of course, again, this is not across the board, but often healthcare professionals make judgments like, well, their daughter never visits, or this is happening, or I can't believe they didn't keep this person home. It's like, we don't know what's going on in terms of the dynamics of a relationship, the symptom management, people's personal health problems, mental health problems. And we do see this kind of like assuming that people are doing something unloving, and we do shame people. Talk to me about that a bit.
That's really where my first book came from, right? This, because I was a dementia care director, and people kept coming into the building asking questions like, how do I know this is the right thing? Is my mom happy here? Should I really have done this? Maybe I should have kept dad at home longer and taken care of him. But I was getting these questions so often that I was like, I just had kind of wrongfully assumed that there was information out there for people who were looking to transition a loved one into a dementia care community. And then I went home and Googled it, and I was like, oh, never mind. There's nothing about this at all. All of the information online, like all of the forums, everything are just like, take care of mom at home forever, and that's it. And I was like, okay, because that's not really an option for everybody. I mean, especially if the family lives far away, or like the siblings aren't getting along, or even for somebody like me, I'm a huge extrovert. There's no way that I would do well at my house with one caregiver coming in. I would be bored to tears with or without dementia. So for me, like personally, I have long-term care insurance. Like I plan on moving to a care community setting at some point in my life. Hopefully I'm like 85 and I've lived a healthy, life, and I don't have dementia. But if I do, I'm ready to go. This is like what I know that I want for myself. And being able to educate other people about, hey, dementia care is an option, and here's what we can do to make it better while we're working on it.
And I think that's something that you just said, is because in what I see here in Montreal, in the long-term care residences that I'm going into, there's only a handful that I would want any of my loved ones in, or myself or my children. If, I'm dead and they're older and I imagine them in a place, there's very few that I would feel comfortable helping somebody transition to. And I think that's the problem, where maybe more people would be more open and not feel so much pressure if the care provided was not standardized, cookie cutter, old school care. That we know so much more now about the disease and about how to manage it, which we're going to get into with your embracing the reality approach. And I think that's one of the issues, is we need to create better environments, and then people maybe will feel less pressure and then can make an informed decision, and not one based on, stress and guilt.
Right. Yeah, we don't want people just making a decision because they feel like they have to, like I have to keep mom at home, or I have to move her here because of this. Actually having information on both options or multiple options.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about your approach of embracing their reality, which is beautiful. And when I'm trying to think of my social work training, to me, it's a lot like validation. And we say in the social work world, meeting the client where they're at. And to me, that's what embracing their reality is. It's about, recognizing that whatever the person is saying or experiencing is their reality. It's exactly what's happening in that moment. And it's useless for us, especially for someone who has lost their ability to reason and their judgment and their insight to try and do something different. So explain to me first your approach, and am I explaining it right in terms of my social work perspective?
So embracing the reality means that you go to their world no matter where it is. And this is actually different than validation, because the validation method says never to lie to somebody with dementia. And that's what I was taught. I was taught the typical Teepa Snow, and then Naomi Fail, like just redirect, distract, validate, don't lie. And when I started working in dementia care, really quickly, I was like, wait a minute, what does this mean? When you're telling families not to lie, they're like, okay, so I'll just tell mom exactly the truth of my reality, which is like, oh, mom, you have to live here now because you're 85 and you have dementia and blah, blah, blah. Like, for most people, if you say don't lie, but then you say, but also validate them, it's so black and white. No one knows what that means. I don't know what that means.
So let me just stop you for a second before you go on. For me, validation is not what you're saying. To me, validation is confirming, or I guess not even reassuring. To me, it's validating the person that their experience is difficult. So if someone says, oh my God, I don't know where my kids are, I need to leave, I need to go pick them up. To me, validation is something like, it sounds like you're really worried about if you're going to get to your kids on time. So it's not about changing their reality. It's about confirming that their feeling is real in that moment and making them feel that they've been heard. To me, that's what I mean by validating. I don't know what you're talking about. Your context seems a bit different.
No, that's true. You're right. The challenge becomes when you go past that. And the person, like when I first started doing that, and I literally had a resident say to me, yeah, no shit. Like, where's my mom? Because I said, sounds like you miss your mom. And she's like, yeah, where is she? Why does no one here answer my questions? And I realized, like, I didn't answer her question. I just validated that she was upset. The other, like, prime example being, if you have someone who believes, like, I had a resident who believed the building was on fire. And, the validation technique, and I know because I argued about it on LinkedIn with somebody, was, sounds like you're afraid of fire. And it's like, yeah, of course they're afraid of fire. So I said, okay, embracing someone's reality means you solve the emotional problem instead of the physical one. Instead of just saying, sounds like fire is scary to you. What I did was I pulled up my phone, found a fire truck noise on YouTube and played the fire truck noise and said, oh, don't worry, the fire truck is coming. This calmed her down and it solved the emotional problem. Now, when I said that, on LinkedIn or whenever I say it, occasionally people will say, yeah, but you lied because there was no fire truck. And I say, all right, good luck, calming this lady down who's actively hallucinating that there's fire by assuring her that yes, fire is scary. Like that was, because that's what the staff was trying to do. Some of the staff was saying, oh, look, there's no fire, which of course was making her more upset. And then some of the staff was saying, sounds like you're afraid of fire. And it's like, she's just like pushing people out of the way. Like, let's get out of the building. Let's get everybody. We gotta leave, And so by playing the fire truck noise, that's kind of where the gray area comes in. And I think that's really what separates my approach from anything that I've heard anyone else previously define of, okay, let's find out where your world is and then really do it and not just kind of like hang out there, but like really go. Like, okay, let's get a fire truck noise. Let's go there. And so that's where I come in sometimes to conflict that I appreciate with people who are strict Teepa Snow, people who are strict Naomi Fail validation, which is Naomi's trademark phrase. That's where I sometimes come into conflict with people, because they'll be like, but you can't, you can't. And it's like so confusing to me, because when you tell, especially when you tell families, like, don't lie, but also don't not lie. Families are like,
it's very confusing. Yeah. And people who are in that world where they're caring for someone, they need direction.
yeah,
They need an answer. And there's definitely a difference between saying, oh, it sounds like you're scared of fire, versus saying, oh, that sounds really scary that there's fire in the building. And then you play the siren of the fire truck. So because to me, I do feel like people like to feel heard. That's my experience, whether they have dementia or not. People like a reflection back that, yeah, what you're saying and feeling is real and true. And then I really appreciate your approach. And I will say, years ago, I thought, oh, maybe we shouldn't lie. And this time, at this point in my career, it's not that I'm actively choosing to lie, but what I'm thinking of is, what is the objective of what I'm saying? If my client is agitated, the objective is to help them feel less agitated and calm and safe and secure. What can I do to get them to that place? And in the end, they don't have the reasoning and the judgment and the insight to take this in the same way I do. So I need to respond to where they are. What you say is embracing their reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just tell people, like, the word lying is so negative, right? And so we hear it, we go, well, I don't want to do that. Right. And so that's not what I'm ever telling anybody to do, because we're not lying. When we're embracing someone's reality, we're doing what's true for them. And typically when we're lying, we are trying to get out of something, right? Like, anytime you've lied to someone, it's probably because you're trying to avoid conflict for yourself. But when you're doing what's true for a person living with dementia, you're actually helping them solve their challenge. And so I hate the phrase therapeutic lying. I hate the word fiblets. I hate white lies. I just tell people, like, look, get that out of your vocabulary, because again, especially when you're talking to somebody who is very black and white, and I have no idea how many caregivers, I mean, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, not just live, both online and in person, when I did a lot more public speaking before last year. When I've spoken to groups who are very, like, there's like, everything's black and white, like, especially people who have really hard science and math backgrounds, they're very logical, and there's not a lot of room for interpretation, which is why they need to be so specific. Like, when I've done it, and people have when I've talked about embracing their reality, people will raise their hand and be like, okay, but what about, and then they'll lay out a scenario that's specific to them. And a lot of times if we have a good rapport throughout my talk, I'll say, what do you do for a living? And they'll say, oh, well, I'm a research scientist, or I'm a mathematician or something. And I'm like, and there it is, because they're so like, this has to be in this way, and I can't, deviate from this formula.
There's a lot of rigidness.
Fine. It's rigid, and it's fine. Like, that's a great way, that's a different way of thinking, and definitely a way of thinking that has brought us vaccines and has brought us lots of great things. But for the people who embrace reality much easier, those are always like the writers, the artists, the people, the theater, the performers, the actors. Like, you can see them especially when I'm doing in-person talks, you can see them go, oh, I've watched people turn to their spouse or who is ever sitting in the audience with them and like, oh, and they're like whispering something to them, but they have this look of like, oh, okay,
Eureka.
I got it, because I'm telling them, like, look, you're not lying, you're living in their world, here's exactly how to do it, which is where those 3 questions come in. Like, okay, when someone's saying to me,
okay, so wait, you're about to say, okay, so you're going to go into a technique. So I want to be clear. Yeah. So I'm your client, and I'm saying to you, where's my mom? Where's my mom? And I'm clearly agitated. Your steps are what in response?
So where's my mom? Where's my mom? If you're my client, I'm going to say, where do you think she is? Because you're going to say, I don't know. You're going to say, I think she's at work. You're going to say, you know what? I think she passed away. You're going to say, oh, she's at the store. You're going to have an answer for me, even if it's, I don't know. And then I'm going to repeat it back to you. Like you were talking about earlier, you know, feeling heard. It's literally all you're going to do. And so if you say, I think she's at the store, I'm going to say, that sounds about right. She's probably at the store. And if you say, I think she passed away, I'm going to say, that sounds about right. She probably did pass away. And if you say, I don't know, I'm going to say, neither do I. Let's see if we can find out. This completely takes you off the hook because you'll never get yourself into a trap. You know, by saying something like, oh, I bet she's, home from work and, you know, maybe she's sick or something. Like, you never want to make anything up because really that is kind of a lie. But also, if they don't agree with your new reality, now you're kind of stuck. You're like, oops.
Could you say something, Rachel, like if you said to me, I don't know, could I say something to you like, I'm not sure either. Where is she usually in the afternoons?
That's great. Great. Yeah,
Okay.
Sure. Really what you're trying to do is quite literally ask them, where's your reality? Okay, cool. Let's do that. Instead of going like, sounds like you're this, which is great in therapy, you know, but in a situation where someone is actively very confused, maybe they're hallucinating, maybe they just have a very intense delusion and they have dementia, that's an opportunity where we have to go, okay, let's find out where your world is. Let's go there.
So then can you mix responses? So for example, if a client says to me, I want to go home, and I say to them, oh, that's a great idea. Where's your home? And they say, I don't know where my home is. And they get up and they start being agitated. And now you can see they're getting visibly stressed out about it. And I say, oh, okay. Well, what does your home look like? What colors are in your home? Who lives there? Now I'm asking them questions and I say, that sounds like a great idea. Now can I throw in distraction and say, why don't we have a snack? Right now, let's have a snack. Let's listen to some music. And as soon as we're done with our snack, it's a great idea. We should go to your home. And so then by the time the snack is over, maybe they've forgotten. Can you mix techniques like that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think, you know, when I'm doing a presentation, I always talk about what I learned when I first started dementia care, which is redirection, distraction, validation, and of course, not to reorient, even though that's what we told people for years and years and years. Yeah. And sometimes people are still taught that. And I say like, okay, here's what I teach and how it's different. But I really do like distraction once you embrace someone's reality. My favorite example being the time I got when I had a resident who wanted to go back to her house. Obviously, we couldn't do that. Had to get her off of a bus that she was on, our community bus. Got her off the bus by saying, okay, let's stop at this like hotel for a second. We'll have something to eat. Got her off there using embracing her reality. It was a whole thing. And then got her inside and got her dinner, which would classify, you know, as distraction. And then she was fine. So using that transition is good. But that initial go-to, I think just saying like what we've all been taught, like, oh, don't lie, just validate. I think that is so short-sighted because it doesn't get there. And then you have everybody like making their own kind of rules about it. Like, well, you can do this and you can't do this, which is why I trademarked this phrase and was like, boom, this is what it is. Because now I can say, hey, this is my phrase, you know, and here's what it means. And so if I see someone using it incorrectly, I can be like, actually, you know, like I have a legal trademark on this. Here's what it actually means. Like, you're welcome to use it. In fact, please do. But one, attribute it to me, and two, make sure you're explaining it correctly, which is why I don't have a pyramid-shaped business where I train people to teach the same stuff that I teach, because I honestly, it's so hard for me to trust that someone's going to explain it the way that I explain it. And the devil is in the details on this by and large. So,
and what has been the resistance of, let's say, you're going into care communities? I realize that you're doing family work as well, but let's talk about care communities. You go into a care community, you've got 30 staff members, and you've got some nurses and physios and workers who've been around the block, that've been there a long time. I mean, do you face a lot of resistance, or are people like, okay, we feel at a loss, we've tried everything and we're still struggling, we're open to this? Where do you fall with that?
I've been doing this long enough that, explaining it, I can usually get everybody, what I like to say, onto my farm pretty quickly. Very, very rarely have I ever had anybody be like, well, and occasionally that has happened in the past. But I am so good at explaining it that honestly, most people are relieved. I've had people come up to me, especially care staff, come up to me and be like, I've been doing this whole time, but I was afraid to tell my boss because they always tell me not to lie. And so people who are pretty creative in their thinking have been embracing realities. They didn't have a name for it. And so for a lot of people, I'm putting a name to something they've been doing, and then really rounding it out with the questions that I teach, like, where do you think that they are when someone living with dementia is asking, where's my mom and dad? And saying, okay, well, you can respond like this. And it kind of rounds out the question.
So, and does it work? I mean, we've talked about some very usual things. People say, I want to go home. Where's my mom? Yeah. I need to pick up my kids. These are things I hear a lot.
Yeah.
What about things that fall into the paranoid delusion symptoms? So things like, I have a friend whose dad has Alzheimer's, and he is constantly thinking that his wife is, sleeping with someone else, and this kind of thing, right? Of course, we've heard this. I mean, I've heard this from a lot of clients before. Oh, yeah. How do you respond to something like that? Using your technique, embracing your reality. I'm your client, and you say to me, oh, are you married? So you just asked me a very benign question, and I say, I am married. My husband, though, he's out all hours of the night. He's sleeping around. He's got other families. He's a horrible man. How do you respond to this besides what a jerk?
Yeah. So with accusations, especially if it's, about somebody that person cares about, or like if I'm the daughter and I'm coming in to visit mom and mom's like, your dad is sleeping around. One thing too, I have kind of a different, slightly different nuanced approach, which is to help to solve the problem like we would with embracing their reality, but not to fully accept what they're saying, but not deny it. So you can't be like, that's stupid, that's not happening, because that's just going to make them more emphatic about it. Like, no one's listening to me. So I would say something like, really? I don't know. I met him once and he seems like a really nice guy and to care about you a lot. But you know what? I'm going to look into this for you. I'm going to kind of keep an eye on him. Okay. We'll figure this out. And so you're saying, like, I hear you. I don't think that's going to happen because this person really seems to care about you, but I'll help solve it for you. So you're kind of like taking the weight off of them a little bit, but you're also not going like, oh man, you're right, he's totally sleeping around. The two things that I always hear from people living with dementia or from caregivers is people are always concerned about one of two things, or both, which is someone's cheating on me or someone's taking my money. Or the double whammy, which is someone's cheating on me and they're also taking my money. And these things are all about control, right? When we feel like we don't have control over our lives, we start making accusations. And so that's where that comes from. And so you go like, okay, I'm going to help you regain control. Although I'm not totally convinced this is happening because this person cares about you. So you're not just like throwing the other person under the bus and also agreeing with that. Embracing someone's reality doesn't mean you need to actually agree with their reality. It just means you need to help them solve whatever challenge they're having, at that time.
Yeah. And I love that approach too, because, you also want to sort of calm somebody's nerves when they're saying, this person that I love, my daughter, is out to get me. I had a client tell me 2 days ago, a spouse, that his wife, who has Alzheimer's disease, is convinced that her daughter gave her memory loss. Almost like those who think that you inject the vaccine and now you're being tracked. Somehow the daughter like inserted memory loss, you know? And so it's really hard because this caregiver, the spouse, really needs the daughter to come over and provide support. But every time she comes in, this whole thing explodes about how this daughter has done this to her. So I like what you're saying, because it gives this spouse an opportunity to say, but honey, you've been such a good mom to Rachael all these years. She's such a lovely person because you've been such a wonderful mother to her. I'd be very surprised if she wanted to do something to hurt you. However, I'll look into it and see if she's doing something. So it's like, then you're trying to repair that relationship a bit, but then you're saying, I'm going to remove the load, as you're saying, from you and take some of this burden on in investigating these claims.
Yeah. If you just said like, oh, you're right, you know, that's not going to help anybody, because nobody wants to actually, like, really, when someone is saying that to you, even sans dementia, like if you go into work and your coworker is like, I'm pretty sure my husband's scamming on me, you have two options. You either go, that guy's the worst, or you actually try to make this person feel better. And you're like, I don't know. I don't think so. Because what's going to make them feel better that day? You just being like, yeah, you're right. Or maybe you trying to insert some doubt, even, you know what I mean? Like, even like going like, I don't think that's really happening. I know that you feel that way, but I think it would feel way worse to have somebody just be like, yeah, he probably is. You know,
I don't know, Rachel. I expect my girlfriends, if I tell them that my husband's cheating on me, for them to say, what an ass.
Right, but I would want some investigation. You know what I mean?
Of course, but I'm just saying, I don't want them to say, I don't think so. I want them to say, hell yeah,
I guess I'm thinking, like, if this is a coworker, like if this is somebody you don't know super well, you'd be like, well, okay. But yeah, if it's a friend, like, I'd probably be like, I'd probably be like, really? You know, I mean, like, I don't know why anyone would do that to you. One, that's probably what I would say. And then two, I'd be like, well, let's figure it out. Like, do you know, I want me to go spy on him? Like, what are we going to do?
Exactly.
You know,
oh, good. I'm going to wear them all black. Yeah, I'm going to wear all black. Don't worry about it. I'm going to catch him. I'm going to be in my
right.
I'm just making a joke. Obviously, it's different when it's someone who still has their cognitive functioning fully intact. Obviously, your responses are different, but I really appreciate what you're saying. So as we're winding down here, I did want to ask you one final question. Mm-hmm. You've been given $7 million to open a care community, a dementia care community. What are your 3 priorities? What are you going to do? I want to hear what your dream community looks like.
So interestingly, what I would actually do is open up an adult day, because I don't think there's enough adult day programs. And I am in the very, very, very early stages of planning an adult day franchise. Actually, I'm at the moment looking, kind of keeping my ear out for a potential financial partner to make this thing happen. So I'd open an adult day, not because I don't love dementia care communities, but because I think adult day is a really good option for a lot of people. And it's usually somewhere between home care and assisted living specific care. And I think it's a good like go between, and we don't have a lot of options for that at the moment. So it would be adult day, but it would be adult day specifically for people living with dementia. And it would be a place where staff are really, really super duper trained and are paid to well enough that they want to stay there, and that we're getting high quality people, because that is a huge problem. You know, these communities are always complaining like, oh, we can't keep these staff and whatever. It's like, well, you're paying people $10 an hour. You're getting, you know, people who don't have really any desire to stay. I mean, they could probably get paid more at McDonald's. You know, they could get paid more doing something else. This is hard work. You need to pay people what they're worth. So 1, it'd be adult day. 2, pay people well enough that they have incentive to stay there and to
Yeah.
grow in that career and to want to care for people who are living with a cognitive impairment and who need that care and to get that training. And the third thing would be to provide a place that embraces the reality of each person living with dementia. So whatever their world looked like, to make whatever their internal world looked like, to make the external environment match their internal world. So those, and that's like slightly ambiguous. I have in my head what that looks like. But those would be the three things. And I think honestly, the biggest piece is making sure that the staff actually understands dementia care and is paid enough that they want to be there.
Yeah.
And that you're getting people who are qualified.
Yeah, absolutely. And who can get the training that they want, can be provided with advanced certification, even, as you said, grow into other roles. That's amazing. Well, I certainly wish you the best of luck. And if you need any help or assistance or whatever, Rachel, of course, I'm always here.
Keep your ear out for a financial partner. It's probably going to be like a home care company. But I have a whole idea brewing, and I'd like to get an organization who wants to be the financial backer so that I can get to a point where I can like actually franchise out this idea. I think adult day is a real opportunity. People forget about it because there's not a lot of options. And it would be, I think it would benefit everybody to not just like build more assisted living or build more home care, but like, okay, I think we have other ideas here. We have other options here.
Yeah, amazing. And it would be great too if even, as you said, if it's created around what the person's reality is, if it was a 24-hour system. So for those that are having more issues at night and awake at night, caregivers would even have an option where like, it's not adult day, it could be adult night. You know what I mean? Like other options for different, anyways, this is now.
It could be. I know. So I know it's easy to, really, I think there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of options for care, that we're not really taking advantage of. I know I forgot you're in Canada, but I think both Canada and the United States are kind of in the same boat here.
They are. I mean, I worked, I'm from California, so the first 30 years of my life I spent in California, and 6 of those were working full time as a social worker. So it's the same. Okay. It's absolutely the same. Yeah.
It's the same problem. And honestly, like, different countries have slightly nuanced issues, but I was just doing a webinar for a community in South Africa last week. And I did one for them the week before as well. And it was, it's just like it's an assisted living building essentially. And they're dealing with the same resident issues that I've dealt with, however many miles away. It's the same, like people are the same. No matter where you go, you will meet the same types of people and you will have the same types of problems and whatever else. So that was kind of interesting. It was like, their dementia related challenges are the same.
Yeah.
All the way across the world. Same problem.
Thanks, Rachel, so much for spending the time with me. I will put in the comments the link to Rachel's website, and you can find everything you need to know from her and social media channels, blah, 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 but you can find it all on her website. So I'll put the link in the comments. I'm going to end the broadcast, Rachel, but hang on for just a second. So
and by the way, we had a bunch of people in the Clubhouse.
Oh, good.
Just listening in. So thanks for being here, Clubhouse people. I will, stick around. I'll have more rooms like this.
Okay. So thanks, Rachel. Hang on. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Oops. I'm trying to end it and my computer always freezes. It does this weird thing on my Mac. Anyways, I'm going to end it now. There we go. Oh no, it's doing it again on my Mac. There we go. No, trying to click on the